You are listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report, episode number 222, our boys basketball state finals recap with Grant Shouse, Michelle Garmon, and Josh Sigler.
You're listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report with your host, Greg Mengelt.
Welcome back to the Central Indiana Sports Report and our state finals review with Grant Shouse, who is at all four games, all four really good games. He has some recaps. We are joined also by Tipton Tribune and Elwood Call Leader sports editor Michelle Garmon and veteran reporter and author Josh Sigler to talk about what is one of the greatest things in the world, and that is Indiana high school basketball.
All four games were good in the fourth quarter. The one blowout was the 1A game, and it's still a 1-point game, or still a close game in the fourth quarter for times. When we made our picks last week, we went with Orleans, right?
We did.
We picked Orleans. We did. So I wasn't at all shocked that they won. I was really happy that they won because Tom Bradley has been the coach there for a long time and has paid his dues as a head coach, over 400 wins.
Always good to see that program that has been close year after year after year, beat the team that had just for the first time gotten there. And so I know what you're saying.
I think, and especially with them being in that sectional for a long time with Bar Reeve and Lagodi and North Davies and all of them, those are championship programs. Those are three programs that have won at least one state championship over in the last, 25 years or whatever. I mean, in the last century. And for them to finally join that is really special. They had a really great player on Saturday, a guy named Alex DeWitt, who was huge for them. And then another guy, Rylan Crocker, their point guard, was good. Bryce Jones, kind of that trio was what was huge for them. And Clinton Prairie got things going. Jake McGraw, who I'm sure you've seen, is going to IUK next year, just committed to IUK. And they just, I think the lack of maybe schedule strength for Clinton Prairie showed a little bit. It's a team that's lost 2 games and to 2A opponents, and that one of them won a sectional, the other did not. I think Orleans just showed that they had more experience, and they had guys that I think just felt comfortable being there. I don't know if that's what you guys took out of it, though.
I think Orleans just had more depth, to be honest. I just think Orleans had more depth, per se, more scores. Clinton Prairie just relies so much. A lot of that comes from Jake McGraw. I mean, I know they have some other players, but he's what I call he's the lone really gamer, put the ball in his hands. And I think when you're in that position, sometimes if you have more guys that can score, or you trust with the ball in their hands at the end of game, or to make that shot or whatever, that's an advantage. And I think that's what Orleans had over Clinton Prairie, and I think it showed. And although McGraw did as much as he could, I think, to get Prairie back and try to win that game.
If I'm looking at the box score here, fellas, I only see, and to Michelle as well, I only see 5 guys play for Orleans. Is that right in that game? The majority of those kids were juniors, but hey, including DeWitt, you had 3 guys that were double figure scores in that game. And, the Peckinpah tree is real, man. And so, that was a great season for the Gophers in Clinton County, but Orleans with the short bench got it done. And it's nice to see how many minutes those kids played. And there's only 5 in this box score. Could be wrong, but if they didn't sub anyone, that might be a misprint. But if they don't have a long bench, so what an effort by those guys in that game to win that game. I think it's their first in school history.
Hey, Josh, you remember when Indianapolis Metro won the state championship and they only had 6 guys on their entire team?
I was away from the game at that point. Yeah, but that's awesome.
Remember when the Hickory Huskers only had 6 players on their team and won the state championship?
They actually
Yeah. Last I checked, those baskets were the same height, right?
They were, yeah.
What a great day. I mean, was it 16 points total in the 4 games was the spread?
19.
I mean, 4 games, 19. I hope that it was sold out. I don't know that it was, but I hope it was.
27,000 between the two sessions.
Well, I'll tell you what, the video that I think it was Kyle or whoever took there for the night session, that 4A game was fantastic. I mean, that 4A game had the feel of an NC2A tournament game.
It really did.
Yeah, it did. And
it was live. Hey, it was hype on a webcast. So, Grant, what was it like in that arena for a 4A game?
Look, and I told Greg this on the daily report the other day, and I've been there probably a handful of times in my life for Pacers games and other events and other state finals, and that was by far the loudest I've ever heard that arena. I mean, that place was jumping, man. Fishers had an and one towards the end of regulation with Jason Gardner Jr. to give them
name recognition.
Yeah, to give them the lead. That place exploded. That's the only way. If you saw my tweet, it's the only.
Hey, did the entire subdivision come to Baker's Left Fieldhouse from Fishers?
It's not that there were a lot of Fishers and Jeffersonville fans there as much as that.
There were some Siglers in there. I saw them. They hit threes in that game.
Yeah. Are you related to them?
Yeah, but we won't talk about it. Yeah, but no.
Yeah.
They lost, right? They lost.
They did.
To Sharon's boys, and they burned couches down on the Ohio.
Yes, they did all weekend.
All right, that's all I got to say about that. We can talk more, but that's what my Sharon. Yes, sir.
I really wanted to see Sharon and them win it because they were kind of the underdog in a way. I mean, they were good. They were there for a reason, but Fisher's nationally ranked, and with that roster that they have, they were definitely the favored team. They were favored, and I was just really happy to see them.
Yeah, hey, here, just a sec. I see a 0 number, but I see 12 characters, but I see a dog with 26 points, and I see a 1 point victory in overtime. That guy's name is Trey Singleton.
Man, was he good.
Hey, Kyle and Nedrick called this. They didn't have an answer for him, and man, he was right. He told you guys that, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did not.
He said it would be a challenge.
When he wanted a bucket, hey, Grant, you're in the house. When he wanted a bucket, he got one, wrong?
That's exactly right.
Yep.
All right.
It's one of the best performances at the state finals I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Grant, you're a young man, but I'm only 41, but the best games I've seen, and I saw all 3 Zeller boys. I saw Deshaun Thomas. I saw Brandon Dawson from Gary West. I saw some dogs. That was a great game.
Talking about with that 4A game, because you've gone out of order here, but with that 4A game, just it was so electric in there. And when that final buzzer went off and Jeffersonville won, that place exploded because a lot of people wanted to see the upset, just like in an NCAA tournament game. You know, people that go are rooting for an upset. People were rooting for an upset, and Sharon Wilkerson becomes one of 2, 3. Do you count 3? And here's why. I'm going to tell you. He becomes one of now, I guess, 3 players to win a state championship as a player and then come back to their alma mater and win one as a coach. Sharon Wilkerson, Don Carlisle at Ben Davis, and Pete Turgovich, who won one with East Chicago Roosevelt, then came back as a coach at East Chicago Central. Do you count that?
Yes.
I'm counting it.
Yep.
I count it.
Yep.
Can I say something about that, Grant?
Yes.
Well, you just pulled out with a stump the Schwab.
What's that mean?
He doesn't even know what that means. That's how good. That's how young he is.
That was a very high compliment, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Pulling out stats from out of nowhere is a very Schwab-y thing.
But poignant ones, man.
Yes.
Poignant.
Yes. The one thing I was going to say is I watched that game and I felt like if it was played 10 times, Fishers probably wins 8. Yeah. But on that day, it was all Trey Singleton and Jeffersonville. He was so good.
The
And that pass he made for the game-winning basket
was unbelievable.
was unreal.
It was that this Jeffersonville just had the magic that day, and the teams that won it deserved to win it. It wasn't like one of those where they, the team that shouldn't have won it. Like the teams that all 4 teams that won deserved to win the games. Talking about the 2A game with Manchester, we did a whole thing on them, and Josh knows them. I know him. Michelle's seen him. That game was walking away. I would say if that Jeffersonville Fishers game wasn't the best game, if that game didn't end up being that good, I think the 2A game would have been the best game of the day. It's tied or it's a 1-point game with a minute to go, and Manchester made a big play with Gavin. Actually, Manchester was down 1 with about a minute and a half to go, and Gavin Benton scored a layup to give them the lead. They never gave it up. After that, they hit some big free throws, and then the capper on that one was Aaron Reed for Manchester, a senior who hit a big 3 in the first half. This guy's a 14% three-point shooter. He hits a big 3 in the first half, and it was one of the first plays of the game. So shout out to him, and then shout out to Wyatt Prater as well. 2 points per game for that young man, a 24% three-point shooter, and he hit a 3 in the first half. So if those things don't happen, they don't win the game. They don't win the game. You give University a lot of credit, though, because they had a really good game plan. And the game plan was to force Gavin Benton to catch the ball away from what we would call the rack zone, which is basically the kind of invisible square around the basket in the paint. They shoved him off the block to have to make him catch it far away from the basket. And I think the easy adjustment was he needed to post up right underneath the basket, so when they pushed him out, he was right on the block to where he could catch the ball. It just didn't happen that way. He still had 21 points, 10 rebounds. Ethan Hendricks hit a big 3 at the end of the third quarter to make it 39-34. Going into he actually made it 39-31, and then University hit I'm sorry, they just hit a crap shot at the end of the quarter that went in. The guy I was impressed with for University, and I know you guys will like this because you're IU people, I was impressed with a kid by the name of Josh Henderson, who is the son of. Yeah, he really impressed me. He had a good game on Saturday. He's going to be a kid that has a bright future there at University, and University made plays where they should have. They could have won the game. I mean, they could have won the game, but they missed shots in the final minute, and Manchester got rebounds and hit free throws, and then Aaron Reed had that steal for a layup that was the exclamation point on a state championship season for the Squires, and they're the first ever team in Wabash County history, boys or girls basketball, to win a state championship.
Hey, I got a little caveat about and I did not know this until yesterday. The ties for Manchester to Tipton, Elwood area start with, of course, Eli Henson and his dad, who's his assistant, Dave, because Dave was the Elwood varsity boys basketball coach, and Eli played
some
for
funny
him.
stories about Dave.
So you've got that, and then I found out last night, Josh, that Talon Torpy is Pam Taylor, who coached at Tipton in the 80s, before your time, but then finished up. It's her nephew. I found out her daughter. They were there. She showed video from the game and was talking about it and talking about how she knew her late grandparents. The Fitches would have been there, and so it's amazing. And I'd forgotten that Pam that's where she graduated from. She was a Manchester grad. So
Let me go deeper with you for a second. I'm from Tipton, and until like last week, I didn't even know I was related to Greg Mengel. So there's that. Number 2, I went to Manchester University and graduated in '06. That town's very special to me. 3, Eric Christiansen, who's the editor of the North Manchester News Journal, is one of my very best friends in the world. And if I had to pick, having lived there for 10 years, to have one program to win a boys state championship, it would be the team that Gary Gossett used to coach when I was there.
Oh, man.
It's the Manchester Squires, man. It's so deep for me. Here's how special this was, guys. The older people in the room will understand. I was driving down 31 going back to Wabash that day. I got to listen to Rita Price on WRSW on the 2A game, guys.
You're a lucky man.
I couldn't watch it, but that was as good as it could have ever gotten. That lady, how old is she, guys? Let's give her some respect.
She's
How old is
old.
she? Like, she's been doing it since Judy Warren.
Wow.
Yeah, this was her 50th for boys and girls.
Wow.
Doing the state.
I gotta listen to her announce that state championship, fellas, ladies.
That's great.
Yeah, so they won. That's my town. I love the Cables. I love the Borns. I love the Flats. I mean, I could go on, Dan. I could go on, people. I could go on, but I won't. That was a special one for me. It's as exciting for me to see them win that as Strong's boys in Jeffersonville burn them couches. It was a very special time for all those reasons. 06 Manchester University grad.
Hey, Greg, I've got to ask you, did Jeffersonville come back down home on Saturday night, or did they arrive home on Sunday?
They did. They arrived at
2:30 in the morning, right?
Yep.
You could hear it? Could you hear the
1:45
siren
in the morning?
Wow.
Greg, I have still not seen a burning couch. You
I
told
was
me
in
there were.
Elwood at the time, Josh. I was not burning
that's right.
couches.
I forgot you had that preview thing.
That's right. I was not burning couches.
Okay, if I don't see one by Wednesday, I'm burning my own.
For those of you who don't know, that's supposedly a thing in Kentucky. So
Lexington, in fact, I think.
yes, with Jeffersonville being so close, Josh.
The Confederacy burns couches, I guess.
That's right. That's a big thing when Kentucky loses. Everybody says, "Oh, watch your couches in Lexington tonight." So, or wins.
Tell me about this 3A game, Grant, because hey, like obviously Addix has the name appeal. South Bend St. Joe had some big names too, and that was a good game, but way low scoring than what we saw in the semi-state for the Huskies.
Yeah, it was, and
one of the best dunks I've ever seen.
Maybe the best dunk I've ever seen.
Can you describe it to me? Because I didn't see this.
So the game was good throughout, but South Bend St. Joe had control for most of it. They got up 11 in the third quarter, and then they were up as many as 9 in the fourth quarter. It was 50-41, and then a 9-0 run for Addix tied it at 50 with about a minute to go in regulation. And it was kind of similar to the 2A game a little bit, but it wasn't, because in the 2A game, not one of those teams went on like a big run there where they had the lead, like a 9-10 point lead. This was different. So St. Joe's got the ball. Nick Shrewsbury, son of Micah Shrewsbury, head coach, basketball coach at Notre Dame, he rose up for a kind of an off-balance baseline jumper. And I have it on video as clear as day, and I could send it to you, Josh. I'm going to send it to you. And he misses it. But he misses it at an angle. It was almost like Chase Kniesny, however you say it.
Are we talking short corner? Where are we at here?
He's in the short corner, baseline jumper. Think kind of Keith Smart in the national championship, kind of like that, but probably a little more further in than where Keith Smart was. Chase Kniesny comes flying in out of nowhere and grabs this thing and slams it back in.
It happened so fast. It was almost like, whoa, what just happened? I had to rewind it to see it again.
And watching it live, man, that place it was another one of those plays. Like in the 4A game, that place just went bananas. I mean, that place went bonkers. And it was incredible. St. Joe never gave up the lead after that. That, honestly, you think about it, that was the game-winning play in a way, because Addix never got back in front, so they never had to make another play.
And it was all free throws after that.
Yeah, it was, and that was the last field goal of the game, and it was on a dunk.
Putback.
So hey, I'm looking at just the quarter scores. It was such a tight game. And also, like the St. Joe boys, the Husky boys over there at St. Joseph in South Bend, the boys over there at St. Joseph at South Bend there, the Huskies, like, those are good kids. Those are hard playing kids. And what I show in these box scores, at least if nothing else, they can play a million miles an hour. They can grind you to a win.
Yeah.
That seems like a versatile bunch with some name appeal. That's a tough group of boys right there in the middle of South Bend.
And I love the story of losing in the state championship last year and coming back and getting it done this year.
Well, we had that in 3A for girls too.
That's right.
Yes, we
Norwell
did.
lost last year, and then they won it this year. So it's a little bit
In
of
fact, it was the only. If you think about it, 3A girls and boys. You had last year's runners-up coming back and winning, and they were the only teams from the north to win on those days. The
Oh, wow.
South won 3 of the 4 classes for girls, and the South won 3 of the 4 classes for boys. No, they didn't. I forgot. Manchester was north. My bad.
It was
Sorry.
2. It was 2 and 2.
2 and 2. That's right for the boys. It was 2 and 2.
All right, everybody. Another successful season in the books for Indiana high school basketball. A great year in Central Indiana. Not the best year we've ever had, but man, the days are coming. A lot of good young kids in Grant and Madison County in particular. Your final thoughts on the state finals or the season as a whole, Michelle?
Well, I'll tell you what. I think the season as a whole, and I'll go back just to the postseason. I'm doing kind of like a little column type story on Hoosier hysteria, and I think the HSA should be commended for what starting with the 50-year celebration with the girls' state final, that the postseason, and I think they made it special. Those games weren't as thrilling as what the boys were, but I loved it. You got the sense of Hoosier hysteria. I think Jane with her features and the videos of all of the winter, state finals up to that point on that day, I think helped bring a little bit of that feel. And then for the boys, I mean, you couldn't ask. I mean, the IHSA couldn't just scripted better postseason games. I mean, you look at how many semi-states and the state finals were just nail-biting games. I mean, there really weren't that many blowouts in those, and it's just, it's what you want, it's what you hope for. And then to have Gamebridge packed and loud and that type of atmosphere on Saturday is phenomenal. You know, I think it's great. I think the IHSA did a great thing. I love the fact that we are now playing 4-team semi-states. 2-team regionals and 4-team semi-states, because I think it enhances the tournament, and it allows schools to follow along, more schools to go farther in the tournament. And but I love it, and what a great season. And I mean, you're talking about, I watched some Hall of Fame games, tremendous, great Hall of Fame games, and Indiana boys basketball. I'll tell you, they've got a good crop of players, and I think they're been impressed with what they have. I think deciding the boys all-star team this year is going to be. I'm sure it's probably pretty much decided now. I expect it to be released here shortly, but had to be a hard one. Has to be hard. I think it's going to probably come down to who, as they watch a little bit of the top 60 games, who they think fits what they want to do. But yeah, kudos, great season, tremendous. I just think it was a tremendous season, and I think the postseason just added a lot of excitement to it. I know Grant had a fun ride in the postseason. It's always fun when you have a special connection to a team and you get to experience that ride with them. And it is just it's an experience that I've been fortunate. As I'm doing the story, I'm thinking, for me, for Tipton County, I've had three-time Class A state championship team for girls, a Class A state runner-up team for boys. I've had a 2A state runner-up team for boys and a 2A state championship team for boys in this area, and for girls, 3 2A state runner-up teams, and that's pretty good. That's just basketball. That doesn't encompass the other sports, and I think I just love it. Hoosier, I know NCAA likes their March Madness, and that is fun, but this weekend was Hoosier hysteria at its finest.
And way better than the college tournament. Josh?
So for me, this season, guys, for, just watching girls and boys basketball across the state of Indiana was the first season in a long time that I enjoyed this game as a spectator, and that was what was most important to me. But, as the season went on, how many storylines are we not even going to talk about on this podcast that were great about this season? But I'm going to go back to that Manchester game for me, and I'm going to go back to I was in the car on US 31 going down Indiana, the Miami County, the rolling hills, the Barnes near Denver, North Miami School District, and I couldn't watch that game, but I got to listen to Judy broadcast that game on the radio from the Manchester Flyers, who won their first state championship in boys basketball, and they also won one in boys baseball. I don't know how many they have altogether, but that town, like the fire trucks had fire trucks on them, man. That's how great it was in that town that night. I know that because I talked to some people that live there now, and I have big parts in the community. So basketball still matters in these small towns, guys, and it matters to the spectators in the small towns. I was once a spectator in a small town before I went to Tipton High School and loved the game. For Rita Price, for me, like, I got to listen to Gavin Betton have a good game with Rita Price on the mic. And so Rita Price, man, 1976 was the first girls season in this state in the IHSA sanction. The state championship game that year was won by Warsaw, 57-52 over Bloomfield. Michelle, how many students does Bloomfield have?
Oh,
That's
gosh.
not very many.
Not many.
100, 200?
They're 1A,
Okay.
so
Now they're 1A, which means they might have been smaller then. I don't know. Anyway, there was a crowd of 7,000 people at Hinkle Fieldhouse on that day in 1976, man. Judy Warren was the Miss Basketball that year. She was the star of Warsaw. They won a state championship for their coach, Jan Soyas, who is also now a Hall of Famer. Rita Price did the same game for Judy Warren that day in 76 as she did for Gavin Betton Saturday, and I got to hear it on, the radio, man. So for me as a spectator, I didn't get to see that game, but I saw it in my eyes, and I got to hear it through Rita Price's voice. And these are the stories that we need to remember as we all get older, because this right here, we can go to classes. We can argue about a shot clock. This is Indiana basketball. High school, it still matters to the people, even in these towns where it's football towns. I've been in a lot of them. I've been in a lot of football towns. They love that basketball too. They still play in 100-year-old gyms. They love their basketball. Can we stop arguing about a shot clock and just enjoy Indiana basketball?
Oh, yeah. Here's the thing. I get the shot clock argument to some point, but I don't. I don't want it to come in Class A girls basketball. It would be detrimental. It would be those games would become even uglier.
Judy Warren won Miss Basketball that year when Warsaw won the state championship. She was a teenager. She went on to play at Franklin College in Franklin, Indiana, which in 1980 was her senior year. That was still a Division III school. In 2025, can you ever imagine the Miss Basketball winner playing at a Division III school or an NAIA school? Whatever it was in 1980, it was a small college. Now the Miss Basketballs in Indiana play at IU. They play at Tennessee. They play at DePaul. They play at Louisville. They play at these big schools.
Yep.
They play at UConn. Indiana basketball, boys or girls, is really, really healthy right now for the people that still love the pure game of basketball.
yeah, I 100% agree with the both of you. This season was fantastic. I mean, it may not have been, the best season. This year was a weird year because I don't know if it felt like this to you guys that cover it as probably as much, but I felt like there were a lot more cancellations and weather permitting things that compared to years past that may have slowed it down in January. That's always, there was one time this year I had 3 games canceled in a week, and maybe you'll get 3 games canceled all year. This was a great season for me personally. And like Michelle said, it's real special to get to follow these teams, especially like even the girls with Norwell, like did pretty much all their games in the tournament minus their regional championship. I didn't get to do. I was out sick that week, but doing their state championship was really cool, and building the relationship with their coach, Eric Thornton, who's going to the Hall of Fame at some point in his career, now has a state championship under his belt, almost 500 wins. He's a high character guy that you want to be around, and winning one of the 4 games on the 50th edition of the state finals was real special for them, a program that was involved in one of the very first state finals in 1977. And then to graduate everyone from a runner-up team in 2024, come back in 2025 with an entirely new roster and win a state championship. That was real special. And then even with, Manchester and following Manchester and, knowing Coach Henson and him, being a family friend and a guy that could always count on for access and to, kind of lean on during the tournament. And whenever you needed something, he was there. And I'm not going to lie to you guys. Yesterday, when it finally, I think it hit me that it was over, I was bummed out. I was sad. I mean, and
Wanted more.
yeah, I mean, you didn't want it to end because you felt like that not only do you have this, friendship with the coach and everything, but the kids make this special. It's not these coaches really. It's the kids that make it fun. It's fun to watch the kids play, and
Always good when you're left wanting more.
yeah, I mean, that's how you know it's successful, right?
Well,
I mean,
that's the
Yeah.
one thing I hate about the Tipton girls in 2021 was COVID and all the mandates and everything. It took some of the luster out of that trip. Didn't make this special. They had to play on Friday night. They were the one
Right.
game that got played on Friday night, not on Saturday. Still not sure how I just say determined all that, but it
Hey, I was
just
in that house that night and still very happy to wear my Tipton stuff out of the arena into a restaurant.
there you go. What made that run special for me, being part of the coaches, Zach, my nephew, because they were back in Lafayette living. He brought my great nieces, and so I got to share. I made sure they got pieces of the net from the semi-state, and then they made it to the semi-state, and then to Gamebridge. But it just took away some of you didn't get that same atmosphere because of the limitations of crowds and everything. So it did take away a little bit. I think the first run I really enjoyed when I was following it, as far as for basketball, was really the first of the 3 back-to-back state championships won by the Tri-Central girls under Kathy Layden and with that group. I mean, it was just a lot of stories and fun. Those kids, they were, good kids, a neat thing. Of course, I followed before that. I followed because I'm good friends with the Hobbs family. So I followed Kokomo during the tournament. Once Tipton got beaten the second, they were out in the sectionals. So I followed the Kokomo Lady Wildcats, their back-to-back state championship years, and that was fun too. Just because, I hung out with, Tiffany Longworth's the Hobbs family at the hotels, right before games, between games, playing cards and all that. Again, that was one class basketball. I will say this, the class basketball for that and the championship runs have been nice, but the state finals, I still think I still miss that because the one class basketball was a fun day because you had the semifinals and then you'd go out with your peers to a restaurant or a bar and you'd be watching the NC2A games because you wanted to go somewhere where they had TV so you could watch, and then you'd come back for the championship game that night. And those were always a fun experience, but it is fun to make that ride. And Grant, I'm glad you got to enjoy it both for the girls and the boys.
Yeah, I mean how often does that happen? I mean that doesn't happen very often. I'm lucky and blessed to be in a position that I'm in and getting to know these people. It's all about creating relationships and building these foundations with people and getting to know people. And this year was fun. Next year, I'm really looking forward to the next year. There's going to be more opportunities, and I think there's going to be good teams next year. And then, of course, the Final Four is going to be in Indianapolis and all this stuff. To me, the season for me doesn't end until next Monday night in the national championship game.
It doesn't end until June when the Pacers win the championship.
Oh, I hope you're right.
I like that talk.
I really instilled this last year because last year, for me personally, was one of the most fun years in basketball I think I've ever had. From starting to get in more with the media business and all that. And to me, it was a real fun year last year, and it was great this year. But last year was just great. To kind of cope with the end of the season and there not being any games, I kept saying the season doesn't really end; it just dies down. I think there's still other basketball things that go on in April and May and into June, and then when you get to July, that's when it really. to me feels like it's over, and
But
then
then
it's
you're
not
only a
coming
couple
back.
months away from the next one. So
Yeah, I mean, so it gets you through. But what a great year this was, and I'm glad I was able to share these stories and talk with you guys on here. And looking forward to the spring sports, kinda, and then we'll get into the off season. Before you know it, we'll be talking football in late July, early August. Looking forward to it.
thank you, Josh, Michelle, and Grant for joining the Central Indiana Sports Report. And my only final word is I was in Jeffersonville from 2001 to 2024. I guess all they needed was for me to leave as the sports editor. Them to win a state championship. And I guess that was all. No, I'm very proud of Jeffersonville and Coach Wilkerson and those kids. Great kids, too. I don't think everybody probably knows that, but tremendous kids. And Pam Hall and Larry Owen in the athletic department at Jeff. They've been working hard for this. I know Pam, of course, was a great player herself. Big deal for her, and I'm happy for all of them and those people at Jeffersonville that I loved through the years, and very happy for them. I love doing these roundtable discussions on hot topics with people like Michelle, Josh, and Grant, and also Will Rutherford, who joined us last week for the IU report. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Thank you so much for listening. If you're interested in seeing the Central Indiana Sports Report continue to grow and thrive, please share these episodes with your friends and family. Oh, and check us out on YouTube too. Just search Central Indiana Sports Report. Thank you. Central Indiana Sports Report is brought to you by TG Media and I Love Susie.